රට නගන ජන පෞර.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Zoom. Newsfirst is carrying out these interviews using Zoom because of the concern for the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we too, like everyone else, are doing what we can to stop the spread of the disease as much as possible. This evening we have joined on our program, again by Zoom, by Dr. Sujata Gamage, who is the co-convener of the Education Forum Sri Lanka. Very good evening to you, Dr. Gamage.
Good evening to you too.
Now then, I'd like to ask you, Dr. Gamage, clearly the COVID is around approximately 2 years old. The children of the world haven't been to school for about roughly, with a bit of tiny little bit of journalistic flourish, we'd be safe to say that around 2 years the children of the world haven't been to school. This surely must be having an impact on them. And what is that impact?
We call that the COVID education disaster because, it's not like adults, even university students. Children grow, they keep growing, their brains developing, and they need the nourishment for the brain. And, when we begin to find out the nourishment is not really what they pour over there, into their heads in schools. It's a social life. It's a social emotional part. And some of the essential learning that they need to do. And they're missing. And then they've grown and that stage is gone. So it is a serious issue when it comes to children's education.
Now, we know that some children, not all, but some children are relying on online and connecting to their schools with online.
Very interesting. The policymakers and media, they kept saying online education, which is not correct. It should be distance education, and online education is only one part of that. And we find online education was received only by, this is a survey we did in December 2020, at most, at the higher level is 45%. And online education is really not truly online education. The synchronous sort of classroom experience through Zoom and Teams only by 5%. We have 4 million students, 4.4 million students. So we are talking about not the students you and I, we know in Colombo and around, in our surroundings. This is all that if you take all the children, only 5% would have had a synchronous experience, synchronous learning experience. Others got their notes and assignments sent over WhatsApp. And from what you heard, the technology has made it sometimes worse because they're getting what we have in schools, a transmission mode of education, teacher transmitting content. Now, through the technology, she or he can transmit a lot of information. So children are bombarded with stuff. Those who are online, sometimes you think that those who are offline are the lucky ones sometimes. Right.
Now, I wanted to ask you, Dr. Gamage, especially with the very young children, the little ones who sort of started off. I read an article from one of the international news publications, and they were saying that in India, some of these very younger children who just sort of started out their education journey had forgotten some of the alphabet, for example. And that must be happening in Sri Lanka too, surely?
Absolutely. That is, language and math. These are the foundational. These are what you call cumulative subjects. You need to have be at a certain stage before you go to the next stage. So for other subjects, you can catch up. But these two, particularly the primary school children, if they don't get the the writing the letters, forming the letters and forming the words, putting them together, that kind of step-by-step progression, they are probably that will be the hardest to fix, I think. Other children, I think we can catch up still.
Now, now you say they can catch up, but generally the system of education here in Sri Lanka is that you tend to get promoted from one year to the next. I don't know if the right word is promoted. You get moved to the next year ahead of you. Irrelevant, almost irrelevant of your performance in the lower class. So in these cases, it looks like they might get promoted or moved up 2 classes because they've not gone to school for close upon 2 years.
Yes, and that's something we've been advocating highly, diagnostic tests, because we are fixated on these national exams. And actually the national exams really, they are really barriers. So because grade 5 scholarship is barriers because we have few popular schools, and then grade 11 is a barrier. It's not really assessment, it's a barrier because we have so many science medium, science stream schools. Then A-level, we raise the bar higher, we just add more and more facts, and then that's because we can offer only so many free spaces. So yes, what we are really, I know everybody's fixated on exam. You had the GC O-level, and we've been sending congratulations messages all around. But these exams are in some ways harming more than helping. Because what we need is a diagnostics to make sure that all children are at a basic level. We don't do that. Some people fail this high bar, and that's fine, but they have got nothing. What we need is diagnostic tests to make sure there are essential learning competencies, that they have got those. It's really hard to get it into the policymakers, because they're so used to doing the national exams, and that makes like they're doing something, people look forward to it, but you forget those who are left behind, those who are damaged by these exams. What we really need at this point is what should they learn, the basics they should learn, and whether they are there. We need those tests.
Talking about this sort of a change in the methodology of how we teach and so on. It was interesting that a comment made by one of my guests on International Children's Day by Kitmi Gunaratna, who pointed out that Sri Lanka's education system needs to be changed instead of sort of memorizing stuff and so on. She wanted a system where the children's talents will be brought out and so on. Are you in kind of agreement with Kitmi Gunaratna on this?
Absolutely. We should get the kids to talk more. You should get more kids, and just because they are really helpless. The parents are like, they don't want to rock the boat. They see their children, I have 10 years, whatever, to get them across to the boat, to the other side. I'm not going to do anything about this. And the policymakers are not going to do anything about it, because this is the easiest thing to do. Keep doing the same exams. They're actually old-fashioned, 18th century, prehistoric. Easy for them to keep doing the thing. And everybody thinks something's happening. Children are suffering. We should hear their voices. They're helpless because the parents are pushing. The teachers are judged by the results of these 3 national exams. So the teachers have no choice but to teach for these exams. And I have studied the content of these exams in detail as part of a research. They test not knowledge. Knowledge is, these are just facts. Knowledge is at higher level than facts. You take facts, and when you make sense out of it, and you make, see patterns, and you construct something out of it, that's knowledge. No, our children are not getting knowledge. They're getting facts. It's a fact that if you look at the exam papers, it's amazing the amount of rote learning that is required. Children read. I'm just surprised that children don't speak up more. So I was really glad to see that clip. I think we should hear more from our children. I personally heard from children, who met me and they said, Auntie, I know maybe you can do something. Why do teachers have to give homework for all the 13 subjects? There are 13 subjects. I mean, there's a lot of hardship, suffering for children. And they're not getting heard.
And of course, that was 15-year-old Kitmi Gunratna who said that. But 10-year-old Dhanuka with a H, Vijay Gunaratna, he pointed out that his name is spelled with a H, you see. And so 10-year-old Dhanuka Vijay Gunaratna told us on my Newsline live program that he's fed up of talking to his parents, and he's only the only sibling, and the only other thing he's got is a dog called Blackie. But he made the point. He said he was quite fed up of listening to his parents, and I think in the wider the meaning, and I'm sure he would have had at least 300,000 or 400,000 fellow students of different ages, all agreeing with 10-year-old Dhanuka. How much of that is an impact and a real worry in terms of our education?
That is the biggest worry. As I said, the last 2 years, learning, we can catch up. But the social, emotional part, then only now we realize how much of a social, emotional part that the schools play. The teacher is another adult they can confide in. Teachers play a huge role in that. So being cut off from that, being cut off from their friends, it's a big loss, the biggest loss. But I'm saying it should not be the way in Sri Lanka. We could have avoided that if we thought about it. And from March, in Sri Lanka, what I say we have is a glass full, half full situation. We have a mobile phone in every home, almost every home. We have 240,000 teachers. Student to teacher ratio is 14:1, right? It's much lower than anywhere else. We have the result. Why couldn't? I mean, this has to come from policy. Teachers did their best, but they went with children they could have online, and they went on. But what if I'm just think about it. A teacher gives a call once a day to a child, and there's some assignments are there. We have textbooks. For every subject, there's a colorful textbook. Every child has textbooks. There are 13 subjects, there are 13 textbooks, workbooks. So I think we really should have thought about this human contact other than your parents and siblings. And first paid attention to that. A call, how are you doing? Did you, are you
focused, or is it out of focus?
It is too focused. The curriculum is, it's heavy, but if the teachers have the freedom, and if the teachers need a little bit of nudging, which actually I'm doing right now with a group of teachers, the existing curriculum, if you forget about the exams, if you're not teaching to the exam, you can actually work with the curriculum. Because you don't have to, they are focused on covering the syllabus, which is a wrong notion, because it has learning outcomes, competencies. If you focus on those, and you can, with one activity, you can cover a lot of things, without going lockstep. So I think the curriculum is heavy. It needs to be, can be lightened. But if we change the exams, we have to begin with the end in mind. That is what teachers are judged by. If that is changed, and if some of these exams are actually, we don't need some of these exams, then I think the teachers have the freedom. We have to teach them to think freely. The teachers have been sort of stamped down. They don't think freely. If they think freely, they can indeed give a better experience for the children with the existing curriculum. Actually, in fact, we're trying it out right now.
And just ahead of our break, but our culture is such that children are sort of, what's the saying, should be seen and not heard, sort of thing. So the ability of the children to speak up and speak out is somewhat unhinged by traditional cultural values?
That I'm not too sure of. We need to try it. And few teachers, I mean, I'm working with the urban school. No, I worked with the village schools in Ampara zone. No, actually, teachers are pleasantly surprised and they enjoy it. I think, particularly the primary children, no, I think teachers enjoy it. I think it'll change. I don't think it's, no, because it's pleasant, you know, when the children make smart remarks, it's actually, they probably smile in spite of themselves. So I think it'll work. I don't think culture is a barrier.
And on that note, let's go for a quick break and have a peek at this evening's headlines from the wonderful News First primetime news team. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
The Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Peradeniya is calling applicants for the 2021-22 academic year. Closing date 8 October 2021.
One qualification, two destinations. All of the students can save time, money and stress. For 288,000 rupees, complete the ACBD Foundation in 8 months and enroll into universities in UK, Australia or ACBD partnered universities in Sri Lanka. Enrolling now. Call 071-115-1234.
The Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Peradeniya is calling applicants for the 2021-22 academic year. Closing date 8 October 2021.
Teachers take to the streets on Teachers' Day. Petroleum Resources Bill debated in Parliament. Solution to the milk powder crisis further delayed. Government to consider a hike in the price of gas.
The Postgraduate Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, University of Peradeniya is calling applicants for the 2021-22 academic year. Closing date 8 October 2021.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Welcome back to Newsline Zoom. Newsline Zoom, ladies and gentlemen, Newsline, the program, has been broadcasting for over 6 years. And we started off, of course, with the late Bandula Jayasekara. We haven't really marked the 6th anniversary of Newsline because of, as a mark of respect actually for the loss of our late chairman, Mr. Raja Mahendran, but we will be marking that with a very special program in the very near future. This evening our guest is Dr. Sujata Gamage, who is the co-convener of the Education Forum Sri Lanka and is also a senior research fellow at Learn Asia, a regional think tank based in Colombo. Now then, Dr. Sujata Gamage, tell me please, your professional career has included serving as a Director General of the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission of Sri Lanka. Are you happy with the training and the opportunities in that sector or not?
No, I think the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission is always a stepchild. And even the terminology we use, this is for those who could not get into universities. So, And I think it is an uphill struggle with technical and vocational education because of particularly that attitude of policymakers, then the stress of society to begin with. But I think, and also the state sector, has its own problems. We have a national vocational qualification system, which was initiated when I was there, and it looked very nice on paper, but it's beginning to lose its edge. Anything we do in the state sector is like clearing the jungle. If you don't tend to it, jungle grows back. So I think it's still the NVQ system is also, I think it could be, growing much faster. This is National Vocational Qualification System, which really brought a little more order and, standards to the system. So there's possibility. But also, I think there's a trend. I was just talking to a young woman. She insists after O-levels, she wants to be a BTech. And she says, I want to pay for my own education. I want to do a BTech. If I want to do a degree, I want to pay for it. I was just astounded. You don't hear that kind of thing from young people. You take it for granted. Your parents feed you, even after you go to university and, just get out of university by 28 or whatever. So hopefully it's changing.
Now, may I put some statistics your way? I'm told, according to some reports out from the central bank, between 330 and 350,000 children enter the education system every year.
Right.
Now, by the time it's time for that batch to enter university, currently, state university, we've got 30,000 spaces, and private universities, we've got 15,000. So total graduates, 45,000. I'm also told that vocational training and so on, it's between 104 and 114,000 spaces. But even if you put both of them together, it's not even 200,000. So what it means, doesn't it, that Sri Lanka will have some trained people, let's say 114,000, and graduates 45,000, and the others will be consigned to the daily wage brigade or entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. And in a context where Sri Lanka is trying to get out of this per capita GDP of $4,000, surely having 45,000 and then another 114,000 is simply not good enough.
Yeah, we have to stop thinking about the graduates, because if you look at our labor force distribution and compare it to Malaysia, which is a little bit ahead of us now, and other countries, our professional and senior professional percent is okay. What's missing is associate professional, the mid-level. So the government is talking about every person who passes O-level, we are going to give a university admission. I think that is a wrong way to go. We need 2-year diplomas. So I think we really need a rethinking. I think the government should support everybody who leaves school 1 year, assure something for 1 year. And maybe certain percent 2 years. After that, they should borrow or whatever, because then we got our need. Our need is at the associate professional level. 2 year, 1 year training is enough. Actually, if our school education is what it should be, once the kids' apprenticeship programs, they work better than any full-time training programs. So I think we really, because of the loud noise, because the graduates shout louder, universities shout louder, we tend to put money there, but we really got our priorities wrong. We really need to fund every 330,000. We need to make sure that they have something when they get out of school, some form of training, something apprenticeship. That's where the money should go. Right now, we have these competitive exams, select 8%, 10%, and give them 100% free education. And the rest, 92%, sorry. I mean, vocational education, let's say you take vocational education, it's mostly free. So let's say 15%, but 8% is expenditure is much higher. The rest, 90%, sorry. you could not pass this exam. I think it's really, to me, it's unbelievable. Policies are made like that, and we think it's okay.
No,
We need to think.
sorry.
330,000. We had to focus on 330,000 who turn 18 every year. I'm so glad you brought that number.
Now, Dr. Gamage, is there a case? I mean, this is a general thing, but there's a favorite saying of everyone that, Sri Lankans love anything free. But whilst that may be the case, who doesn't? I'm sure it's the same in the United States or in America, in England and so on. Anyone likes it free, don't they? But that's not the point. The point I'm making is this. Is there a case to change our education system in such a way that it is linked to an ability to pay? If you are able to afford it, you shall pay for it. If you can't, then it will be free. It can be loan-based, and so that after you start working, you repay this government or the government of the day. You repay the country what it has invested in your future. And the other part of that question is, why should Sri Lanka be a training ground, a supply ground for countries like New Zealand, Australia, the rest of the world, where we train our people at the Republic's expense, and they have then got no opportunity once they've finished that, and so in their view, they've got no other option but to leave. But they leave without saying so much as a thank you to the Republic of Sri Lanka for having trained them.
Yeah, many doctors, actually, I know people who just did their residency and just left. So we definitely, I think you made an important point, ability to pay. But the ability to pay is not the present ability. Because the present ability in Sri Lanka, I mean, how many people have tax files in Sri Lanka? At least how many, if you check their income, it will be difficult to find who's actually earning what. It's very difficult to do a means test and give that account. And there'll be many people who actually qualify university would fall under those unable to pay. So it's not the ability to pay at entry, but the ability to pay after. So they accumulate debt while they're in university. They can pay it off once they graduate. Doctors, especially serving in remote areas, and they can pay off the debt. You can pay off the debt in many ways. Otherwise, you pay out of your ability to pay after you leave the university. So I think that absolutely is a must. Because right now, we really have there's really no supply. There's a supply of education. The demand and supply, there's no link, the universities get that students delivered to the doorstep. Private universities, even public universities in the US, they work hard to get their students to the doorstep. But here they are just brought to the doorstep, and we know, even sciences particularly, enrollment is, they admit, but many people don't turn up. So, and then the demand is students just there, you really don't value it. At the end of it, you get a piece of paper, and they pay for SIM and other qualifications. So they get this piece of paper from the university, and then they get other qualifications. So it's really not working for the improving the quality of our system.
Well, just to digress ever so slightly and to bring it into current context, I quite agree with you about the difficulties in finding out of doing a means test, especially because some people keep their money in tax havens. I just thought I'd just add that in there. But, very seriously, of course, do you think that successive governments do more or less than what they speak at the hustings? They say, oh, we'll spend 6% of GDP on education. But it appears to me that although successive governments in Sri Lanka have their mantra has been spend, 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 they will argue that it's called invest, invest, invest. But I would counter both that and say that they are not investing enough on education. What's your take, Dr. Sujata?
I think we need to, before I ask for more investment in education, I would see, how we are spending our investment. Now we have incredible education system, provincial level, zonal level, divisional level, and schools. We are really not using that system. We have a ministry which really it's really a management problem. We need to fix the management problem and use our money more efficiently. The ministry is trying to, there are two things, macro policy and micromanagement. When they should be doing the macro level policy, they're trying to do micromanagement. When to open schools, what size schools should be open? So all those decisions, they should be brought down to the zonal, divisional level. There are medical officers of health. They're perfectly capable of doing that. But our ministry is spending time, not just this ministry, all ministries, they got it all wrong. So they need to focus on the policy issues, fixing the exams, fixing the curricula, and let the implementation, they should do monitoring evidence, policy formulation, implementation, monitoring. Our ministry should be doing policy and monitoring evaluation instead they are doing implementation. So I think, no, it's not more spending. We really need to, the ministry needs to get its priorities out and get out of micromanaging education. At the school level, we have the expertise. They need to really decentralize education. Education is actually a devolved subject. And it's getting more and more concentrated. And ministries never, 10,000 schools, I don't think anywhere in the world, a ministry tries to give directions to 10,000 schools. So I think it's not more money. I think it's first better management.
Dr. Sujata Gamage, thank you very much for your time on Newsline Zoom. Obviously, Newsline Zoom today, we're marking Teachers' Day, and we hope that this was a timely discussion, and it is also something which my colleague, Mr. Rossadin, will be taking up on Face the Nation at some point. But thank you very much for watching us, and we wish you, as always, a very good evening to you, and as always, too, God bless you.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
කඳුලට තනි රකින දුක